Another day, another story, another bit of dessert to go with the noms. That is T-Foss. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Are you ready to rumble? I would just like to give a very big thank you to my Tier 5 channel members and patrons. Bob the Dragon, Data Magnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Duck Machine, Try Again 95, Estrella the Dreamer, Mesic, Fudic Joel, German Chemist, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you again very much. When Deathworlders Meet, Part 12. Stephen stepped around the fourth and final crewman, a crumple and bloody heap thanks to Ginter's devastating mule kick. She was the biggest creature on the ship, but that wasn't saying much when almost everyone else aboard was 1/2 or double his height. He suspected that many of the inhabitants aboard were from low-gravity worlds, and that had something to do with it. Even after having spent so long at 0G, this place still made him feel unnaturally light at his feet. At around 155 centimeters at her middle shoulders, Ginter's lower profile appeared similar to a full-grown buck reindeer. From her middle shoulders to her upper shoulders, she might have been an androgynous human of average adult size. Her head could be compared to that of a mule deer with a forehead, with 6 horns and a place of antlers. She sported a short coat of fur over every millimeter of her body, with small, fine hairs as a lower layer, and longer, coarse hairs as an upper layer. Her coloration ran a gamut from light brown to dark brown, interspersed with darker spots and fading to a tannish white at her chest, underside, and rear. She, like everyone but he and Aranus, wore no clothes, nor hint of clothes. Instead, she opted to wear a very human-like backpack on her upper half and pocketed harness in the lower half. Unlike when he had noticed his predator friend on her torn undershirt, the doctor very clearly intended to be naked. It looked appropriate, actually, given the fur already providing her with sufficient coverage. He almost felt like one needed to have a bare skin to even have the option of being in the nude. "Glad to see you again, Doctor," said Stephen, patting her lower shoulder as he hurried from the cargo hold into the adjoining corridor. It was then that he noticed Aranus had yet to follow. He turned back to find her crouched in the shadows of the open hold, still holding onto the corpse of her assailant. "I need a moment," she said. "It's too bright to see out there. My eyes will need some time to adjust." "Okay, we'll wait then," Stephen replied with a nod. "We don't have that kind of time," said Ginter. "Maybe a minute or two to get the command deck. Tops. It's only a deck, and Tuktun won't expose to the vacuum to kill us." Stephen helped his crouching companion to her feet. "I'll guide you until you can see," he said. "No, my gentleman, that'll only slow you down." "Climb on my back," called Ginter. "Now." "Are you sure, physician?" Aranus asked weakly, getting to her feet. "I did not think most creatures could have—" "Yes, move it." Aranus indicated her most recent meal. "May I bring my new friend?" "For the love of— Yes, just keep eating, damn it. But we have to move." Before the doctor had finished speaking, Aranus had leapt onto her lower horizontal back with her new friend still in hand. As they ran together, Stephen heard his companion talking to the rescuer. "Thank you for the instructions," Aranus said. "We didn't know what they meant at first, but we figured it out in short order." In truth, Stephen hadn't figured out a damn thing. Aranus must have known that there was nothing in the darts from the moment they hit. She had experience with them after all. As for them being filled with a lethal concoction, he supposed it hadn't taken her long to figure it out either. Without his companion, he would have spent a good 10 minutes looking for a way to counteract the non-existent poison. He should have known that this is all just part of the doctor's plan. He had a pretty good guess that she had also been responsible for turning back on the translators. He hadn't even realized that they'd been deactivated until the night beast started talking. "And thank you for not eating me," the doctor replied. "I wasn't sure you would know we're all of the same side." I wanted to kill you at first, Aranus said with a shrug, and you made it clear that you had been prepared to faulty sleep elixir. Why help us, though? Aside from the obvious. There is no aside, said the other woman. I am a slave here, and I would rather not be. As for the rest, she asked me for help when I was brought on board and examined, interrupted Stephen. I knew immediately that you'd be able to help, Ginter said to him before turning her attention to the woman riding on her back. If you want, you can throw your leftovers off me. They're leaking onto my fur. I brought Stephen's meat rations for you. They're in my pack. How considerate of you, physician, the other woman said, rooting through her pack, retrieving one of the entrees that he'd set aside in his cell. It was a beef brisket, and he was very jealous. She didn't, he noticed, drop her half-finished crewman. The doctor pointed to the open doorway ahead of them and to the left. Here, up this ramp, next level. A thought occurred to him. Doc, we've got to stop by the cells amidship. No, there isn't time, Stephen, she said. Bull crap, he said. We have to try. What about your oath, Doctor? To whom? She huffed. Holding on to the doctor with her arms around her chest, Aranus leaned over to the other woman's upper shoulders. I would be regarded as a stain on my order if we didn't try to free those people, she growled. You are guilty of cowardice, alchemist, if you fail to aid them. Do you know what that means? It means that we're going to free them, Ginter said with a sigh. Idiots, the both of you. This way. They started up the ramp and exited onto the third deck, where the slave quarters were located. Stephen hadn't seen this part of the ship on his tour, but recognized a prison when he saw one. At the far end, a group of crewmen were already releasing the last of the slaves from their cells. It wasn't often that the enemy did his job for him, but he wouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. He saw the two crew pointing their rifles at the slaves now pouring into the hallway. Kill those three, and you'll all go free, one of them cried. Ah, that's why, mumbled Stephen. They don't know who you are, said Ginter. They won't know what the two are capable of. Please, don't hurt them. I don't think we have much of a choice, said Stephen, charging behind the cover of the cell's door frame. He aimed his rifle at the one of the armed slavers and pulled the trigger. It fell, a large smoking hole appearing in the chest before it topped out of sight. With some consternation, he noted that killing the crewman had done nothing to quell the charging mob. He tried killing another one and succeeded just as easily. He briefly considered that his enemies were unusually slow, even allowing for the normal dilating perception of time in combat. They were slow to move, slow to draw a bead on him, and slow to react. He heard a deafening sound, something between a lion's roar and what Hollywood said a velociraptor sounded like. From the corner of his eye, he saw the source. Aranus standing at a full height on Ginter's lower back, a hand on the centroid's head to stabilize herself. With her other, she tightly held the crewman meal by its dangling spinal column. Everyone paused in their tracks at the harsh war cry. All eyes were on Dame Commander. Stephen took the opportunity to shoot another armed crewman in the stomach. I am the night beast, Aranus screamed, throwing the corpse hard. It soared down the hall with such a force that when it hit the ground it burst into a splatter shower of vital fluids, bone, and gore. You will leave this place now, or I will kill every last one of you. Now that had routed the charging slave mob. To the escape pods, Stephen added. Go that way. Aranus looked at him and cocked an eyebrow. He shrugged. So did she. Either she had no idea what an escape pod was, which was more than likely, or she didn't appreciate him ruining her moment, or both. The man made a mental note and sent the distress signal for the pods, or release a nav buoy, or otherwise let someone know where they were. Aranus's ploy, that really wasn't a ploy at all, had worked perfectly. The mob of slaves and a handful of remaining crewmen had dispersed in every single direction, but the one that would take them near him and his companions. He had to admit she was quite intimidating. In the dark of that hole, just after their rescue, while chewing on a half a crewman, she was genuinely terrifying. In the abstract, she was a lot like the worst alien space horrors that cinema had to offer. It was more than just a bearing and behavior, as his arm could attest, and he had booped her snoot, daring her to eat him. Her vision must have adjusted sufficiently, and her strength returned, as she wasted no further time in jumping down from Ginter's back and joining him at the other woman's side. 2 more decks till we're safe, the Deotar said. End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do,